Morning everybody, how are you? I'm Ali Board and I'm broadcasting live from my studio at Down End Farm down here in Dorset to bring you Technique Tuesday. What is Technique Tuesday? Technique Tuesday is where I broadcast, used to be pre-recorded, now is live every single week to help you out with a project that you might be working on or a material or all the rest of it. Now before I welcome anybody who's putting a shout out in the comments, I just wanted to apologise. So last week, if you're an avid Technique Tuesday viewer, you may have noticed that although I had a live broadcast scheduled, unfortunately I just wasn't able to broadcast live, and that was simply because one of my beloved chickens was really poorly and I had to get her to the vet very quickly. Now, I'm very happy to say that she's had an operation and she is on the mend, and it was all a little bit stressful because I had to travel to Newark because some of you know that I did a broadcast for the SAA live last week. So it was all a bit manic on that morning. So thank you very much for all your good wishes and all your kindness in being so patient with me while I went and got Blue sorted out. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. So if you are in the room this morning and you'd like me to give you a bit of a shout out, just pop your name in the comments, let me know where you're watching from, and I will do my very best to spot those as they come in whilst we're talking about today's subject, which I will get on to in just a second. So let me have a look at the comments and we'll see who's in the room. Janice, good morning. Gwen, Nadia, Jane, Ali D, good morning. Jean, Mary, Anne's saying a bit damp here in Bedfordshire. It's a little bit damp here too. Pauline, good morning. Maggie, Sandy, Lou, who else have we got? Barbara, Linda, that's very kind of you. Thank you very much. Mick says, coffee and biscuits on hand, waiting to learn more techniques with eager anticipation. Mick, you are very kind. Maggie, oh gosh, everyone's coming in now. Maggie, Linda, Carolyn, Carolyn's at the hairdressers. That's brilliant. And lots of people saying good morning, and lots of people sending Blue their best wishes too, which is very sweet of you. Thank you very much. So let's talk about Technique Tuesday. Technique Tuesday, you may have noticed, is going to be talking about ink, but there's a much bigger project on the horizon for myself and some of my All Aboard artist members, and that is Inktober. Inktober, what is that? So Inktober is something that was dreamed up by American artist Jake Parker, and you can learn more about it by going to inktober.com. And I absolutely encourage you to go and have a look at that and see what's involved. And basically the idea is to kind of give you a bit of a kickstart. You can follow it every day of the month, or as Jake very fantastically puts it, you can do a half marathon by sort of doing just a few here or there, or you can do the 5K where you do maybe one a week, something like that. It's not compulsory to do one every day. However, I have a group called the All Aboard Artists, and I set them a challenge. So some of the members, each one of them is taking on one of the prompts. And if you want to see the prompts, go to inktober.com. And then we will be posting the work that they have created in response to those prompts every day. Now, I know it's September, and I know we're talking about Inktober, but I wanted to get a bit of a jump start, and I wanted to help you out as well with some of your choices regarding ink. So that is why we're here today. I can see that a few more people have popped up in the room. Deborah, good morning. Carol, good morning. Lots of people are putting the coffee on this morning. Lynn, good morning. That's very sweet of you. Thank you very much. Wendy says, listening as we walk. Good to have you back. Oh, that's Wendy, that's really kind of you. Really bright sunshine in mid-Wales. Wales, one of my favourite places on the planet. And Fiona is saying hello from Scotland. You're all astonishingly welcome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you to the overhead camera, and we can talk a little bit more about ink, and I can show you the first prompt for Inktober and hopefully get you started. So here is the overhead shot. So the prompt for the 1st of October is fish. And I am interpreting that incredibly literally today. Now here is a drawing of a koi carp. Now I've used this drawing in lots of ways previously, but today I'm going to be interpreting it in ink. I've done it in watercolour and all sorts of ways before, but today, because of Inktober and because we have the prompt of fish, this is what I'm going to be doing. And here are some of the things that I am going to be using today. So Inktober is more about the drawing than necessarily having to use ink, but ink comes in so many fantastic formats that it would be daft, wouldn't it, to kind of not take advantage of those things. So let's take you through some of the ink products that I have in front of me. So I have a Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pen. This one is a brush tip, and as you can see is a rather fabulous orange colour for my koi carp. These are just a disposable sketching pen, so when it runs out you throw it away, but they are waterproof. So it means that any mark that you put down is going to stay put. And they come in a huge assortment of colours. I'm very fortunate that I have a large set of them, so I dipped in for the orange this morning. Let me just take a bit of a deviation. Lots of people saying that they're curious about Inktober. Lots of people saying it's a bit chilly. Even in the States, it's a bit chilly. Pauline is saying tried Inktober for the first time last year. Great fun. It is good, isn't it, Pauline? It just gives you a bit of a starting point. That's what I like about it. Oh dear, excuse me. I got the coughs this morning. So there we have the Pitt Artist pen. I'm going to be using that in just a second. Now the other thing we have also by Faber-Castell is an Albrecht Dürer watercolour marker. Now I know this says it's a watercolour marker, but just because of the delights of the English language, of course, lots of things are described very differently. I would actually class this more as a pen than I would do a watercolour, and it sort of says, it says watercolour marker. So I know it's touch kind of on the border for whether it is an ink or not, but it's my party and that's what I've decided to use today. This has a dual tip, it has a brush tip and a bullet tip, and is incredibly water soluble, so you'll see me use that in a second. Now most of you will know that I have a love of Posca pens. Posca pens are most definitely a marker pen, and they're used by a lot of graffiti artists. I suppose you could use it as a paint marker. Where does the line stop between ink and watercolour? Do you know what? I'm interpreting it, like I said, in a way that I see fit. Posca pens are water soluble when they are wet and waterproof when they are dry, so it makes a very interesting addition. Now, the other thing that we have is Brusho. Now, I would definitely class this as an ink, simply because in its use you can make it up into a really liquid ink, or you can use it in its powder format too. And effectively the difference between an ink and a watercolour is that watercolour is based on a pigment. Ink a lot of the time is based on a dye. And what is a dye? A dye is a solution that is made out of making a pigment soluble. And I know that that's a lot of science and mechanics, but take it as read, Brusho does not work like watercolour. You can't blend it out in the same way. It stains the minute that it hits the paper, and therefore, to my mind, is much more like an ink than it is anything else. So I've got two colours that I plan on using today, labelled very scrappily on the top so that when I'm demonstrating I can see them straight away. And we've got turquoise and we have got Prussian blue. In terms of other equipment that I've got kicking around for my demonstration this morning, I've got a good old coffee stirrer, I've got a couple of the SAA's imitation sable brushes, and then just over to the right hand side I've got my ceramic palette, a spray bottle and a pot of water too. So let's get cracking with this, shall we? Pop those things to one side. I wore the wrong sleeves this morning, they're going to dunk in my koi carp. I'm going to start off with this Pitt Artist pen. I'm not particularly following a piece of reference. This was a drawing that came out of my head. It's just something out of my imagination based on watching some fish in a fish pond. So I am going to interpret it as I see fit. I'm going to start off with a few dots, dashes and lines around what I anticipate are going to be the markings of my koi carp, and I'm using that kind of dot dash method. I'll do a little bit of shading with it too. You can see that you've got a brush on this pen, so you can create some really lovely marks with it. I'm going to come down the outside of that. Let's put a little bit of shading into there too, and we'll work our way down this fish's body. Now, if you have any questions about Inktober or any questions about other inks that you may have in your stash of stuff, pop them into the comments and I will try to answer them either as we are broadcasting live, or I will go through the comments afterwards. I can see that Lynn is saying that she loves the rules of my party. Yes, I do tend to follow my own rules, Lynn, it must be said. My party, my rules. Let's use a bit of that orange. I can see that a couple of you are asking exactly what colour this is. This is a colour called Orange Glaze. I think it sums itself up perfectly. Now, do I want to put any orange in that tail fin? Yeah, maybe I do. Let's put a little bit around. I'm trying not to describe the end of the tail fin, because I don't really want it to be that much of a kind of cardboard cutout. I want it to blend into the water when I get that far. So let's put that fin in up there too. Ooh, I'm trying to make tiny marks really, because again, I don't want to over describe stuff, but I think for the time being that will do. Now, the other thing I'm going to do before I do anything else is I'm going to use my Brusho watercolour marker. Now, one of the great things about using products across one brand is that the Pitt Artist pen that is waterproof is called Orange Glaze, and because this is also Faber-Castell, this is also called Orange Glaze. So the chances are that we'll have very similar colours coming out of it. Yes, look at that. So what I can do with the brush tip of my Brusho marker, I can make a few marks on the paper. Then I can take my brush. I just want to make it damp. I don't want to make it wet. I just want to make it damp. And I can use my brush to smudge that colour out and around, which makes it very portable and not so scary as watercolour. I'm going to do the scary bit with the Brusho in a minute. But for the time being, I can add some little touches of colour here and there down my koi carp with just a little bit of water to blend those two together. And hopefully my carp starts to take a little bit of shape. So we'll smudge a little bit more. Let's start to take some of that colour down into those fins as well. Yes, Pauline is saying that Inktense is obviously another really good option for Inktober. I had a bit of an embarrassment of riches this morning, Pauline, because I wasn't sure what products I wanted to use. And Inktense was on my radar to be using, but I think I'm going to be using that in future Technique Tuesdays, because the good news is that Technique Tuesday for the month of October is going to concentrate on Inktober. So you'll have lots of inky things coming your way. So if you're not sure about your ink products, or you're not sure about how to interpret some of the prompts, because some of them are a bit ambiguous, then hopefully I can help you out. So every Tuesday during October, you'll be able to tune in and you will see my reactions to the Inktober challenges. So I've got a little bit going on the fins there. Where else do I want to put a bit of this? Maybe on those, I can never remember what those bits are called on a koi carp. I want to call them whiskers. Koi carp enthusiasts out there in internet land, tell me what those bits are called on a koi carp. Now down into the tail, I can put a little bit of heavier colour near the base of the tail, and then I can use my brush to start to smudge that out into the surrounding area. Let's do that a little bit more. The paper that I'm working on today, incidentally, is Saunders Waterford, but it's Saunders Waterford Rough. Why did I decide to use Saunders Waterford Rough? It was because I've just recorded a piece about how to choose watercolour paper, and it was an offcut. And so on a Tuesday morning, I tend to grab the thing that is closest to me. But what it does do is show up the textures rather nicely. I'm going back in with a little bit of kitchen roll to dab away some of that excess so that we get a nice kind of variegation, and hopefully our carp starts to look a bit more three-dimensional. Now the next thing we're going to do is, I say the next thing we're going to do and then I say we're going to do some Posca work. Why are we doing Posca work? We're doing some Posca work to put some shadows on our koi carp. Oh, James is saying barbules. Janice is saying barbs. All sorts of things going on this morning. I love it when internet land gives me the answers to questions I might have. Thank you, everybody. I'm just going to clean the nib of my Posca pen up because it is a little bit scrappy. And one of the things I wanted to do for you today is to show you how Posca pen is water soluble when it's wet and waterproof when it's dry. So, oh, look at that dog hair. So what I'm going to do is pop a little bit of this lovely slate grey in on my carp, and then you'll soon see when I take that damp brush to it how I can blend it out and start to create a rather delicious shadow on my carp. I can smudge a little bit of that. You don't need an awful lot of the Posca pen. It has to be said, a little goes a very long way. But what I'm after is to create those kind of 3 dimensions because I want my carp to look more rounded. Now you do have to be a little bit speedy with the Posca pen, so that it doesn't dry before you get the wet brush to it, but also because one of the major differences between ink and watercolour is the ink stains, so it kind of hits the surface and then it doesn't really want to go anywhere. So that kind of smudging, that blending out technique that you all know that I love so much, you do need to be a bit speedy about it. So we're moving that colour around, and what I'm hoping this is doing is making my carp look a bit more solid, look a bit more rounded. Lynn is saying, also read, they don't like having their barbels touched. Like you could grab one. Yeah, I'm with you, Lynn. I'm not so sure that I want to be grabbing the koi carp by its barbels. There's a sentence I didn't anticipate saying when I woke up this morning. There you go. It's kind of looking a bit more 3D. And I want to start getting some, is that, well, I'm not sure if that's dry. No, it's a bit damp, never mind. Getting some shape to these fins, and a little bit of dry brush over the top of our rough watercolour paper is going to help with that. That's better, looks a bit more solid. Linda saying not used mine yet. Linda, oh, is that the Posca pens? Have you invested in some? This is the perfect opportunity to crack them open. I know when they come in a set, you don't want to touch them, do you? It's like buying a new tin of pencils, isn't it? It just requires angels singing as you open them, I think. Let's put little touches on those barbels to make those come forward. And then we need to do some work on these kind of top fins that we can see from overhead. So again, a little bit of smudging on there to describe those top fins, and we probably need a little bit of shading down this side too. Linda, it's an absolute pleasure. I'm glad that this has given you an idea of things that you can do with the Posca pens. They don't just have to be used on their own. A little bit of water and you can get some really lovely shading and colours out of them. Now, the one question nobody seems to have asked yet, and I was, whether you're all just being way too polite or it hasn't occurred to you yet, I haven't painted my background in yet. I am painting the fish before I paint my background, which is very unusual for me. Normally I like to get the thing that is furthest away done first, so that that's kind of all in and a little bit signed and sealed. But today I have chosen to do the fish first because I'm going to use Brusho for the background, and a lot of you will know that Brusho goes everywhere, but also because I don't want my fish to look like it is on top of the water. I want the water to be on top of the fish, and therefore when I go to put the fish around and about, I need some of it to glaze over the top of it. So my water needs to be underneath my fish, alongside my fish, and over the top of my fish as well. Now, just temporarily, I want to show you another technique that you can do with these Posca pens, and I need to bring my palette in to do that. Because the paint in them is a really fantastic kind of ink, what you can do is depress the tip into a palette, and then you have that colour there to be able to be used a little bit more like a paint. Jean is saying, never thought about the background, busy watching you do the carp. That's all right, Jean. It's not a problem. So look, you can make it up into an actual paint. Now I'm doing this in a ceramic palette because, like I said, this will dry waterproof. If you do it on a plastic palette, then the chances are you're not going to be able to move it. So what I want to do is I want to stroke some of that paint, just a few swipes of it down here into the tail, so that I start to create some texture on the fin. I don't want to overdo it. I just want a little bit. Now, again, one of the brilliant things about putting Posca ink into a palette is, of course, you can make it paler. So I can water that down in there, and then I get a kind of a much softer finish, which is going to be perfect for this tail area. I can even do a cheeky bit of wet into wet look, so that I can use it. If you have watercolour skills and you're really not used to the pens, what I can do is use some of those watercolour skills ready for my fish. Now over here, I just want to finish the ends of these fins a little bit, smudging those out, and a little bit on this side. And then I'm pretty sure I had better stop faffing around with it. Now, the big question is, did I plug my hairdryer in before I started? I'm really hoping I did, otherwise I'm just going to have to be blowing on this to dry it. Now, if I sprinkle any kind of Brusho on this now, because this is a little bit damp, it's really going to stain my fish, which I don't want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a blast with the heat gun, and this is the perfect opportunity for you to get your questions in. So if you have any questions about Inktober, or you'd like me to repeat anything, or you would like to ask me something about the inks that you have, this is the absolute time to get those questions in, because I'm just going to give this a bit of a blast. Bear with me. Anne is saying, am I faffing? Yep, absolutely, Anne. Right, let's give this a blast. Let's put it on the quieter mode. And then hopefully you can still hear me over the top of it. Now, you don't necessarily need a heat gun if you're drying it. It is simply because I tend not to use a hairdryer when I'm live demonstrating, so that I can still talk over the top of it. Mick is saying, if you add water to Posca pen colours in a palette, do they take longer to dry? And when dry, will they still be waterproof? Brilliant question, Mick. Thank you very much. They do take a little bit longer to dry, but they will definitely be waterproof when they are done. Janet is saying, so much out of one pen. Yes, they're good, aren't they? And they're so versatile because they will go on to metal and glass and plastic. And I'll stop that for a second, because do you know what? You can even draw them onto something like a terracotta flower pot, bake it in the oven, and then they're washproof as well. They're amazing pens. Right, a bit more drying. Bit more of a waft over this. And I better give it a bit of a dry on the back as well, just to make sure that the heat has penetrated all those layers of paper. Jean is saying, I'm liking this, especially now I know the various ways to use my Poscas. Fantastic. And Geraldine is saying that she likes Brusho. How do I shield parts I want Brusho-less? Oh, bear with me, Geraldine. I'm going to get to that bit, I promise. Linda is saying, after you have finished with the ink, can you revitalise it? In the palette, no, Linda. In terms of Posca, it does dry waterproof. So you do have to, that's why I haven't really squeezed an awful lot of it out. What I am going to do to save me scrubbing away at my palette later is I'm going to add a little bit more water to that, because then when I come to wash it out, it will be so much easier to move. Pauline saying, what lot they cover? I don't have any, but on the list now. Oh, sorry, Pauline. Have I made you spend money again? Sorry, not sorry, I think that is. Right, let's put the lid on my Posca pen before anybody shouts at me. And let's get to the Brusho. So just in case you don't know what Brusho is, here it is. A little pot of madness is how I describe them. This, to me, is a powdered ink. You can mix it up into a liquid by adding water to it, or you can use it in its crystal form. I'm going to do both today, just to show you and to give my koi carp a bit of life. I cannot stress this enough. I've said it many times before. I'm going to say it one more time again. A little goes a long way. Less is more. If you can't see it, it's about the right amount. All of those kind of things. I have two colours. I have turquoise and I have Prussian blue, simply because I needed a blue of sorts and I kind of wanted a dark and one for a bit of pizzazz. Now, Geraldine was asking me about how you make things Brusho-less. Lynn is saying, I use paper towel or scrap pieces of paper, but Ali will have a better answer, no doubt. No, Lynn, absolutely don't. You are completely correct. If you want to sprinkle a bit of Brusho on your surface, paper towel is absolutely the way forward. And Geraldine is saying, definitely exploding madness. Yeah, you're not wrong. If you haven't had a go with Brusho before, I would absolutely recommend that you do. It's so much fun. You won't need an awful lot of it, a little bit of caution, but I have to say it is fun. Kids love it as well. So I'm going to pop those over in my palette. Jan is saying, Ali, are Posca pens available with SAA? I can't recall seeing them, but could be wrong. Jan, absolutely available through the SAA, and they do lots of different sizes and lots of different colours. What I will try to do is do more with my Posca pens during Inktober, and then you'll get to see them a little bit more. Lynn is saying, been meaning to tell you that the bamboo coffee stirrer has kept me from dousing my projects. Thank you ever so much. Oh, that's good to know. I'm going to do it now. First thing I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to attempt to tear a vague koi carp shape out of my kitchen towel. And all that means really is spending a little bit of time getting a vague koi carp shape. I mean, who thought you'd have to do this in life? So we'll get that on the... apparently not good at tearing this morning. Let's take a little bit more of that out. And then, so to make life a lot easier, I'm going to do one bit like, maybe not, one bit like that, and then I'm going to turn this bit on its side. Oh, I've got a damp bit of paper towel there. Turn that bit on its side there, and then I don't want straight edges. That's the thing I'm trying to avoid. So let's tear the end out of that. And then just kind of whittle this down a little bit. Now, one of the things I have advised in the past is you can actually pin this kitchen towel down with map pins, or those lovely little small-headed drawing pins. If you're really concerned about it floating away, I'm not going to worry about that so much today. Just because you don't want to be seeing me pinning stuff down. I think that'll do. Jean is saying, I do have Brusho, hardly use them, need to see more stuff with Brusho. Jean, you have come to the right place. If there's one thing I know about, it's Brusho. Right, one coffee stirrer, 2 pots of Brusho. So I'm going to start with the turquoise. I'm going to give the pot a shake first to mix up all the particles that are in there. Because you have all different colours in pigment particles in the pot to make up the colour, you want to give them a good shake because otherwise they settle. I'm going to take the lid off over to one side, and there you can see the turquoise. The turquoise actually has much larger particles than any of the other colours. Here we've got the Prussian blue. Giving it a shake, do the same, and then try to not spend the next 10 minutes knocking it over. Here's the bamboo coffee stirrer. Why do I use the bamboo coffee stirrer? I use it because what will happen is I'll dunk the stirrer into the pot, and because this is a rough surface, it will pick up some of the particles, but not too many. Let's start off with the turquoise. So I'm going to give it a bit of a stir. Apologies if my hand is in the way. Because these are larger particles, I find the turquoise a little bit tricky to pick up. You'll see it better with the Prussian blue in a second. So I've got my little particles on there. So I'm now going to lightly tap my way around the surface. Like I said, because the turquoise particles are a little bit larger, you need to dunk it sort of 2 or 3 times for this. Let's do one more pass. Anne is saying, don't shake Brusho unless the lid is firmly on. Yeah, been there, Anne. You know, pebble dashed my studio with the stuff. It's just the way it goes. You have to embrace these things when they happen, don't you? Right, no, let's do that. Right, now watch the Prussian blue stick to the coffee stirrer. It's a much finer powder. And there you go. You can see that that coffee stirrer is really coated in colour. So again, going to tap my way around this surface. And what I want to know is, can you see the Brusho? Can you see those particles down on the surface? I'm guessing you can maybe see a few, but probably not an awful lot. And therefore, if you can only see a few and not an awful lot, that is the perfect amount of Brusho. Now, I'm sure that you can see a few little bits up here and maybe some little bits down here, but if you've not used Brusho before, you're probably looking at it and thinking to yourself, well, that's not a lot of colour at all. Maggie is saying, don't sneeze. Yeah, you really don't want to do that. But this is my whole less is more principle. If you've only got just a few particles and you're thinking, gosh, I can hardly see it, I promise you that is the perfect amount. Now, one thing I am going to do very carefully before I spray it is I'm going to remove the kitchen roll. Why am I doing that? I'm doing that because I don't want to, I know that there's Brusho on the kitchen roll. I don't want to soak the kitchen roll and then have it stain the carp underneath. What I want is there to be a little bit of kind of spontaneity. Before I spray, let me just have a quick look at the questions. Mick is saying, your fish painting has sparked my imagination as a beginner to painting. Never considered doing a painting of a fish. Prior to this morning, I only considered fish if it came with chips and mushy peas. Mick, that's brilliant. I am glad it sparked your imagination. That's kind of my job done for the day then, isn't it? Jilly is saying, which size nib do you use on the Posca pens, please, Ali? This is the one I used today is what's called a 3M, so it's like a bullet nib, 0.9 to 1.3, but I have used broader and I have used 2 thicknesses narrower as well. During the course of Inktober, I will try very hard to use different nibs so that you can see them all. Geraldine is saying, wasn't stirring my Brusho, lost the colour depth, stirring from now on. Brilliant, good stuff. And yes, lots of people telling me not to breathe or sneeze. So here we go, here's my spray bottle. If I spray down here, which is very tempting to do, all I'm going to do is the air escaping the nozzle of my spray bottle is going to blow the particles away, and I don't want that. I want the water to kind of rain down on the surface. So I'm going to give it a light spritz, and look how much colour was actually on there. Far more than you might have anticipated. And so very quickly, in with my brush, I'm going to go in and I'm going to move some of this, so that it goes up to the carp, and also so that I get a little bit of that colour flowing over the top of the carp too. Now even now, look, I had some Brusho particles over the top. So it's not a bad thing, because like I said, I want the water to look like it is around the fish as well as being on top of it. But you can see how much it spreads with even kind of being as careful as I was. So lots of water going on now. You can see that it stains. It doesn't really move. Don't expect it to sort of be able to be shifted around on the paper, because that will not happen. Let's get some of that blue over the top of the fin. Maybe not that much, Ali. And continue this kind of nice soft vignetted kind of movement around and about. I've got to be quick because it's staining. But what I want is my fish to look like it's sort of flashing through the water, that you've got a bit of movement there. Let's do a bit of dabbing. You can get Brusho out, but you need bleach to do it, or a sterilising fluid or something similar. You might want to watch, I've got my Artist Demo Days week next week over on the Facebook page. And if you're interested in the sterilising fluid technique, you might want to tune in to one of those days. I can't tell you any more at the moment because I'd be giving it away. So what have we got? Sandy is saying, what's Sandy saying? Where's she gone? I've lost her. Didn't realise you could use colour for Inktober. Yes, of course you can. Anything goes. Anne is saying that she loves playing with her Brusho. It's never the same twice. Lynn, who is in America, is saying, so glad I set that alarm now. You're a sweetheart. Jean is liking it, and Anne is liking the turquoise and the Prussian blue together. And you know what? I am going to leave well alone. I need to practice what I preach and say that no faffing about, kind of leave it be. So there is my, or what will be my contribution for day one of Inktober. I'll post a picture again on my Facebook page. So just to remind you, and for anybody that has missed this morning, but there is my prompt, which was fish, using a combination of the Pitt Artist pen, the Faber-Castell Albrecht Dürer watercolour marker, the Posca pen, and Brusho in the Prussian blue and the turquoise. And I'm pretty pleased with that, it has to be said. It's not too shabby for a Tuesday morning, is it? So I'm very much hoping that you will be inspired to have a go too. Please don't forget that you can post your creations over on my Learning to Paint with Alison Seaboard page, because I would love to see them. If you want the list of prompts, don't forget to go to inktober.com, and we'll see what we can create between us. I hope you enjoyed that. I had a ball with that this morning. I missed Technique Tuesday last week. You wouldn't think that you would do, would you? But I really missed. And I really missed chatting to you guys too, because it's very lovely to have your support and to have you all in the room. So what have I got coming up? This week I've got a pretty quiet week, it has to be said. Back out on the road again, which has just been fantastic. If you were able to tune in to my SAA broadcast last week where I did Boo, my little owl, thank you very much for doing that. It's on catch up if you're an SAA member and you haven't had a chance to see it yet. It was so lovely to have people, and I've got a couple of real COVID safe Art Society demonstrations to do this week, and I'm really looking forward to those. We have, like I said, it's Matthew's week on Artist Demo Days this week, and I encourage you to go across to our Artist Demo Days page and to watch his demonstrations, because as you know, he is the master of watercolour. And next week is my week. I'm going to be doing something a little bit different for my week. You know me, can't be doing the thing that I normally do. I've got to push myself and challenge myself, and there'll be a whole load of techniques that you probably will never have seen before. There'll be some things that I've never done before as well. Lots of people are saying that that they've watched various things that I've been doing and are appreciative that I'm out back on the road. You are very kind. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you for all of your good wishes to do with Blue. She's out there pecking around with all the other girls right now. now, and it is joyful to see. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that that has been useful to you. Don't forget to go to inktober.com to see all of Jake's prompts and everything that you can do to join in. But take care of yourselves no matter where you are in the world. We are back under extraordinary circumstances here in the UK, but do not worry. I will still be broadcasting to you every single week for Technique Tuesday, and probably a little bit more too. You take care of your lovely selves, and we will speak very soon. Bye.